Fy enw I yw Geraint Roberts, ac rwy'n eich croesawu chi i'r fideo yma I gofio Llywelyn ap Gruffydd ein lliw ola. Bob blwyddyn, rydw I a David Peterson yn cyflwyno y seremoni o'r gofeb. Dyw hwnna ddim I fod eleni, felly dyn ni wedi creu fideo yn lle. Dwi eisiau chi feddwl wrth I chi wylio'r fideo yma, dwi eisiau chi feddwl am Llywelyn a'i gwmpe, ond hefyd, fel ni'n meddwl bob blwyddyn, am ei ddilynwyr am y bobl a aeth gyda fe I ardal Buallt yr amser yna yn 1282 ac a gafodd ei lladd. Ac yn wir, fel y clywch chi, ni'n meddwl am bawb sydd wedi aberthu dros Gymreigdod, dros y blynyddoedd. My name is Geraint Roberts, and every year you'll find me at the memorial in Cilmeri helping to present the ceremony with David Peterson, but that is not to be this year. So we've created this video, which will give you an idea of the sorts of things that we usually do. And as you watch this video and listen to it, we hope that you will remember Llywelyn ap Gruffydd, ein lliw olaf, our last prince. And, as we always say every year, we don't just remember Llywelyn, but we remember his followers, and we remember everyone. We remember those who have kept the flame of Welshness and a dream of Welsh freedom alive over the years. Nawr felly, fe gawn ni glywed gan David Peterson, y gof yr artist, yr ymgyrchydd, yn darllen gwaith y diweddar Gwynfor Ifans, fersiwn o Dranc Llywelyn. David Peterson, artist, blacksmith, campaigner, usually shares the duties of presenting at the memorial with me every year. This year, he sends us a video where he reads from the work of the late Gwynfor Ifans. This is a version of Llywelyn's death, drawing on a number of sources. Gwynfor Ifans notes the magnitude of Llywelyn's task in the first place, and he puts him in context. And he talks of his role in establishing what we are today.
This is taken from Land of My Fathers by Gwynfor Evans. At a time when the Welsh were getting the best of the war, Llywelyn's life came to an abrupt and frightening end. He was killed on the banks of the Irfon near Llanfair in Mwllt, Builth. What was he doing in such a dangerous place so far from Gwynedd, which was surrounded by the armies and navies of Edward, unless he had been enticed there by some clever conspiracy? According to the letters of Archbishop Peckham, a document was found on his body referring to invitations to go there from the Marcher Lords. He was related to the powerful Mortimer family by marriage. Perhaps the sons of that family had cooperated in the conspiracy. Very conveniently, the original document disappeared, and also a copy sent to the Chancellor by the Archbishop. However, his enemies were waiting for him when Llywelyn came to Cilmeri on December the 11th, 1282. The prince stood with 18 of his men by the Irfon Bridge, and these 18 could have defended the bridge adequately against horse soldiers, even though they were there in abundance. But they were confronted by long-bow archers placed amongst the cavalry, the first time this type of fighting to be used. And it was these who overcame the 18. Llywelyn escaped, but when he was on his way to join his retinue on the land above the river, a horseman, Stephen de Frankton, galloped up to him and, ignorant of his identity, sent his spear through his body. While Llywelyn lay on the ground, fatally wounded, the Norman army attacked his leaderless retinue from the fore and the rear on Llanganton Field. And like the 18 at the bridge, the flower of Wales's freedom army fell under showers from the longbows. Later on, Llywelyn was found still alive. According to Archbishop Peckham, he asked many times for a priest, but was not brought one. As T.D. Williams has shown, the Waverley Chronicle records that the wounded Llywelyn was taken prisoner by Edward Mortimer and executed on the spot. Thus, in pain and alone, surrounded by malicious enemies, the life of the nation's main hope came to an end, in circumstances which were those of an assassination rather than a battle. For over a quarter of a century, this brave, cultured man had led his people with extraordinary skill. He was destined to face a Goliath of a country, many times larger than his own, which was finally able to trample him down. We know now that his life was lived to great purpose. It was for a far distant generation to see, says J. E. Lloyd, that the last prince had not lived in vain, but by his work had helped to build solidly the enduring fabric of Welsh nationality.
Mae bob amser yn fraint cael croesawu y Dr Elin Jones a hithau un o'n brif ymgyrchwyr ni dros yn hanes yn hunain yn ymgyrchu er mwyn sicrhau bod ein plant a'n pobl ifanc yn cael clywed am ein gorffennol yn hunain. Eleni fel cymaint ohono ni fydd hi ddim wrth y gofeb, ond eto mae'n edrych mlaen at y blynyddoedd sydd i ddod, tra'n myfyrio ar ein gorffennol. Dr Elin Jones of Ystadmynach is one of our foremost campaigners striving to ensure that the children and young people of Wales are allowed to learn their own history. Here, she reflects on Llywelyn and the world in which he lived. It was such a different world in many ways to the world in which we live today. But we still speak the same language, we still belong to our bro as Llywelyn belonged to his. We are still a Cymru. We are not necessarily better than anyone else in the world, but we are different. And these differences should be celebrated, for they are part of the richness of our world. Llywelyn and his followers defended Wales, they defended our Welsh identity. They defended the things that made us what we were and what we are. Nesaf, rydyn ni'n falch o groesawu'r prifardd a Dr Myrerir Hopwood, sy'n darllen cerdd gan y diweddar brifardd Iwan Llwyd. Athro'r Gymraeg ac astudiaethau Celtaidd ym Mhrifysgol Aberystwyth yw Dr Hopwood. Mae'n enillydd ar y gystadlaethau'r goron a'r fedal ryddiaeth yn yr Eisteddfod Genedlaethol. Nillodd Iwan Llwyd yntau y goron genedlaethol wrth gwrs. Yn ei gerdd yma, mae wrth y gofeb 700 wedi lladd Llywelyn. Dr Myrerir Hopwood reads the work of the late Iwan Llwyd. Dr Hopwood is Professor of Welsh and Celtic Studies in Aberystwyth University, winner of the Chair and the Prose Medal in the National Eisteddfod, and one of our foremost contemporary poets. Iwan Llwyd, poet and musician, was also a winner of the National Crown. He was at the monument in 1982. 7 centuries seemed to come together that day. We've counted our losses, he says, but we can still look to the horizon. And then a baby cries, the new generation, to face the challenges of another century.
11/12/82 gan Iwan Llwyd. Daeth 7 canrif ynghyd yn oerfel Cilmeri, a'r dail yn diferu atgofion. 7 canrif o sôn am orchestion hen oesau a'r dydd yn gymylau gwynion. 7 canrif o sefyll ar erchwyn y dibyn a'n traed bron fferin yr unfan. 7 canrif o gyfrir colledion yn dawel ac edrych i'r gorwel yn ddistaw. 7 canrif yn ddistaw ger carreg Cilmeri ar awel a rewi llif Urfon. Yna, bloeddiodd y baban a thoddi'r gaeafddydd a chwalu'r distawrwydd a her canrif newydd yn nychryn I waidd.
Un arall o'r ffyddloniaid yw'r cynghorydd Sir William Powell o Dalgarth. Mae e'n gynlywydd ar ddemocratiaid Rhyddfrydol Cymru ac yn gyn aelod cynulliad ar gynolbarth a gorllewin Cymru. A mae'n sôn Eleni am y tywyllwch mae'n gweld yn cau amdano ni. Mae'n nodi pwysigrwydd cofio Llywelyn a Cilmeri ac yn edrych ymlaen fel ninnau gyd at weld y seremoni y flwyddyn nesaf. County Councillor William Powell is another one of our stalwarts in the commemoration every year. Rain or shine, more often rain. He's the immediate past president of the Welsh Liberal Democrats and a former Assembly member for Mid and West Wales. And this year he talks to us of the threats that he sees facing Wales and Welshness.
Helo pawb, a diolch yn fawr I Geraint a'r tîm am y gwahoddiad I gymryd rhan heddiw. It's a great privilege once again to take part in this Cilmeri commemoration of the dark events of 1282. But this year is like no other year. In many ways, we're experiencing our own dark times with a combination of COVID, which many of us have either experienced or know at close quarters, the devastating effect that's having upon our country and our wider world, but also there are other forms of darkness. And in the context of Wales today, one of the greatest threats is the undermining of that precious move towards home rule, which I and people in my own party and people across the parties in Wales have been working towards in the last couple of decades. I believe this year more than ever it's vital to commemorate Llywelyn and everything that this place, Cilmeri, stands for. I hope that once again soon we will be able to gather at that hallowed place in Welsh history. But in the meantime, we must redouble our efforts to see off those who would undermine the Welsh nationhood and the move towards a full home rule for our country. We need to be vigilant because, as I say, there are dark forces at work, and we need to recognise that and be ready to resist. In the meantime, I wish you all a good commemoration, good health, and look forward to seeing you again in the appropriate place, which is, of course, Cilmeri, maybe having a swift half as well in the Prince Llywelyn afterwards. Diolch yn fawr. Thank you very much indeed. Bye-bye.
Fel arfer, wrth y gofeb, bob blwyddyn, rydw i'n canu'r pibau Cymreig ac rwy'n canu alaw marnad yr ehedydd arnyn nhw. A mae'r pobl yn holi fi pam marnad yr ehedydd. Wel, can a gasglwyd yn adal llenydloes yw i. Ond mae sôn, meddai rai, bod yr alaw yn gysylltiedig ag Owain Glyndŵr a bod yr ehedydd yn symboledd, yn symbol ohono fe. Felly dyna pan rwy'n i chanu ddi, a nawr yn ni'n ffodus iawn bod Jane Williams o Gwmafan yn mynd i ganu'r gan i ni. Every at Cilmeri, at the monument, I play the Welsh pipes and I always play the same tune. I play Marnad ar Ehedydd, the elegy for the Lac. And people ask me why. Well, this song has connections, it is said, with Owain Glyndŵr, another one who has fought for Welsh freedom over the years. So I won't be there playing my pipes this year, but we are fortunate that my friend Jane Williams from Cwmafan has recorded this song for us. Felly, gobeithio wnewch chi fwynhau a hefyd meddwl am y bobl sydd wedi aberthu dros Gymreictod dros y canrifoedd. We hope that you enjoy Jane's singing, but also think about Llywelyn, about Glyndŵr and those who have sacrificed for Wales and Welshness over the centuries.
Mi a glywais fod ar ehedydd wedi marw ar y mynydd. Be gwyddwn ni, mae gwir y geiriau awn a gyr o wir ac arfer i gyrchu gorff y hedydd adre. Mi a glywais fod y hebo Edon fyny uwch y fawnog a bod ei galonau a denydd wrthyn hibia gorff yr ehedydd yn curo'n llwfr fe galon lofrydd. Mi a glywais fod corn chwiglan yn ei ddechryn i ffwrdd o'r siglan ac na chaif dianc ragfy wedi rysio o dan y dyrysu honna dilyn a bwnnw boeni. Mi a glywais gan wenog fod y tylwyth dig yn morol a march i'r hedydd bach o'r isial ac am amdor prenafal peti fai ddwy'n bob pedal. Canser ddod a byddin ar fog ac codi braw ar yr hebog ac grisiau lac bloda yr holl telwydd tegau donia ni ddaw can y hedydd adra ni ddaw can y hedydd adra.
Nawr yn ni falch o groesawu y cynghorydd Kevin Campbell. Mae e'n aelod o gabinet Cyngor Sir Gyfyrddin gyda chyfrifoldeb dros gymunedau a materion gletig. Ac fe fydd yn sefyll dros Blaid Cymru yn yr etholiadau nesaf i Senedd Cymru. Ac mae Kevin yn myfyrio unwaith eto ar ein harweinwyr ni ac ar bwysigrwydd hanes i'n hymwybyddiaeth ni o'n cenedligrwydd a'n Cymreictod. Next, we welcome Councillor Kevin Campbell. He's a cabinet member on Carmarthenshire County Council with responsibility for communities and for rural affairs, and he's the lead Plaid Cymru candidate on the regional list for Mid and West Wales for the next elections to the Welsh Senedd. Kevin talks about how important it is to be aware of our history in order to create a better future for our nation.
Mae bobl yn dod at ei gilydd heddi i gofio am fywyd Llywelyn ap Gruffydd, sef Llywelyn ein lliw olaf. A gafodd ei ladd yn 1282 yng Nghilmeri. Ac mae'r enw Cilmeri wedi dod yn rhyw fath o symbol o genedl a gollwyd. Cenedl a gollodd i rhyddid gyda'i farwolaeth a'i frydychu fe mewn gwirionedd gan Brenin Lloegr. A'r miri a wnaethbwyd o'i ladd gan fod yn arwr mawr i'r Cymru a'i ben yn cael ei gario ar hyd strydoedd Llundain. Llywelyn ap Gruffydd oedd y cyntaf i sylweddoli gwerth cenedl y Cymru, a fe geisiodd uno'r genedl yna o gwmpas y traddodiadau oedd yn bwysig, fel iaith a thraddodiadau a diwylliant. A fe welodd y syniad o Gymru fel gwlad, fel cenedl cwbl unigryw. Ond yn anffodus, mae hynny wedi mynd yn rhan o'n hanes pell ni. Ond mae rhaid i ni gymryd yr ysbrydoliaeth heddi o'r hyn oedd yn bwysig i Llywelyn ap Gruffydd, sef cenedl falch, cenedl ddyle fod o hyd yn genedl annibynnol. Ond y tristwch yw bod anghofio am gewri'r gorffennol yn golygu bod ni'n anghofio pwy ydyn ni heddi. Ac mae'n fater o siom enfawr, wrth gwrs, bod cymaint o'n plant yn pobl ifanc ni wedi cael ei hamddifadu o hanes pobl ni ein hunain. Pobl fel Macsen Wledig, Dewi Sant, y Brenin Arthur, Llywelyn wrth gwrs, Owain Glyndŵr, yr Arglwydd Rhys, pobl fel Michael D. Jones, pobl fel Williams Pantycelyn, pobl mwy diweddar fel Lloyd George, Saunders Lewis a Gwynfor Evans. Mae hyn wrth gwrs wedi cael ei esgiluso o'n hysgolion ni ac o'r cwricwlwm. Ac mae yna gyfle nawr gyda'r cwricwlwm newydd i ni sicrhau ym mhob dosbarth ac ym mhob ysgol ar draws Cymru bod penseiri'r genedl arbennig hon yn cael ei cyflwyno i blant a chenedlaethau'r dyfodol. On this day, when we try to commemorate the memory and the legacy of Llywelyn ap Gruffydd, the last true Prince of Wales, it's important that we remember that he was one of the first architects of what we call Wales today. He tried to bring Wales together as one unit, one entity, one nation, around values like language and culture and traditions. And he refused to do any deals with the King of England at the time because he knew that Wales would be brought in to an amalgamation of England and Wales, thus Wales losing its distinctiveness. And I think there's a message there for us today. We must ensure that in future our young people know about the history of the architects of modern Wales, going back to the days of King Arthur, St David's our patron saint, and on then to people like Llywelyn, of course, yr Arglwydd Rhys, Lord Rhys, Owain Glyndŵr, the great fighter, warrior, people who translated the Bible into Welsh, William Salisbury, William Morgan, the hymns of Williams Pantycelyn, and Hywel Dda, of course, one of the great architects of modern day lawmaking. And more recently, people like Lloyd George, Saunders Lewis, and Gwynfor Evans. These people made today's Wales, and we must ensure that the memory of these people and the wonderful women as well who contributed in many different ways to the social and economic development of Wales are remembered as part of our education. We have a wonderful proverb in Welsh which is cenedl heb gof, cenedl heb galon, which in translation means a nation without a memory is a nation without a heart. It's important for us to remember that a people without a knowledge of their history, their origin, and their culture is like a tree without roots. And by being inspired by our past and standing on the shoulders of these great people, we can build a better, stronger, more resilient and more confident Wales in the future.
Dyma ni nawr yn cael clywed gan Calvin Griffiths o Lanfihangel ar Arth. Un arall o'r ffyddloniad yng Nghilmeri bob blwyddyn, yn driw i'w fro, yn hoelen wyth, ac yn driw i'w iaith ac i'w genedl. Calvin Griffiths, patriot of Llanfihangel ar Arth, comes to Cilmeri faithfully every year. In his poem, which he reads here, Calvin looks at the seasons of Llywelyn's life, at his successes and failures, and how that affected those who followed him.
Dyma gerdd nes i ysgrifennu ychydig o flynyddoedd yn ôl i gofio cwymp y milwyr gyda cwymp Llywelyn. Cwymp y milwyr. Hydref, hydref Llywelyn, hydref oedd ar lawr y glyn, o'r drwm oedd llaw y gelyn, o'r greulon ei goresgyn. Gaiaf, gaiaf Llywelyn, gaiaf gwai heb derfyn, i gwaed ar bont y rewyn, i gormes a dychryn. Wanwyn, wanwyn Llywelyn, wanwyn a gwyrddeg uni, daweto gan a derin, daweto dydd dyfyddin. Haf o haf ein lliw olaf, haf wedi'r holl aiafau, tân yn ein calonnau, tân i'r henwlad barhau. Cofio Llywelyn.
Mae hanes yn ailadrodd ei hunan medden nhw. Wel, nesaf fe gen i glywed gan Dr John Davies Llandysil. Mae John wedi bod yn ymwneud â'r seremoni hyn i gofio Llywelyn ers blynyddoedd maith, ac mae'n dipyn o enesydd. Ac wrth i ni rindo arno fe, fellwn ni feddwl bod modd dwy'n cyffelybiaeth rhwng yr hyn sydd wedi digwydd a'r hyn sydd yn digwydd nawr. Dr John Davies Llandysil has been involved in the ceremonies to remember Llywelyn for a long, long time, and he is a considerable historian. Here, he gives us the benefit of his knowledge regarding events in medieval Wales, and we can think that history can indeed repeat itself.
Wel, ni sefyll ar ebyn wal yr eglwys Llandysil yn Ceredigion, a dros yr afon yw'r Siagar. Ac wrth gwrs, dyna gatref o Glyndŵr. A mae'n atgoffa ni bod yr perthynas rhwng Llywelyn a'n Llw Olaf a'r Edward y Cyntaf yn tebyg iawn i'r perthynas rhwng Owain Glyndŵr a Henry y Pedwerydd. Ac oedd y perthynas, yr un math o perthynas sy'n gyda Mark Drakeford a'r Boris Johnson. Mae'n sylfaen ar hen perthynas rhwng Lloegr a Cymru, ac bod y Llywodraeth yn Lloegr yn edrych ar ni yn Cymru fel ail radd, ac y Llywodraeth ni yn ail radd. A roedd yn trafferth, roedd pob arweinydd Cymru wedi wynebu dros y ganrifoedd. Amser y Cynan Garwyn yn y 6eg ganrif, a pawb wedi wynebu yr un problemau. A mae'n wneud ymdrech, bydd rhaid yr arweinwyr Cymru yn wneud i sefyll lan dros ein glad dros y ganrifoedd. Ac wrth gwrs, Llywelyn ar y diwrnod hyn yn colli ei bywyd, amddiffyn ein glad a ceisio edrych ar ôl y pobl. I'm standing outside Llandysil churchyard, and the reason for this is because this was the home of Owain Glyndŵr's mother's family, and they ruled from the building which is behind the camera that I'm looking at. And it reminds us that the campaign that Owain Glyndŵr fought to defend Wales against Henry IV was exactly the same campaign that Mark Drakeford is facing against the Boris Johnson government in London. The relationship between Wales and England has always, in the eyes of the English government, has always been that Wales is the second class and is, they were actually called sub-kings to the kings of Wessex, to Alfred the Great. Our famous Hywel was considered to be second class in comparison with Alfred. And the relationship has gone on in this form all the way through our history, since the 6th century, since Cynan Garwyn and the old kings of Britain. So much so that, of course, we call our leaders these days first ministers, but they were called princes for a long time because we weren't allowed to call them kings, which is what they were. And up until the 12th century, our princes were still called kings. Rhys ap Tudor was the last king of South Wales, and Gruffydd ap Llywelyn was the last king of North Wales. We're standing here to remember Llywelyn the last, Llywelyn ap Gruffydd, because he lost his life actually defending the interests of Wales and the lack of support that Wales had received for centuries in his day.
Roedd Gruffydd Aberynad Goch yn un o feirdd Llys Llywelyn. A mae'n anodd i lawer ohono ni feddwl am Llywelyn ap Gruffydd ac i feddwl am ei farwolaeth heb feddwl am farnad enwog Gruffydd Aberynad Goch i Llywelyn ap Gruffydd. Gruffydd Aberynad Goch was one of Llywelyn's court poets, and it's hard for many of us to think of that time, to think of Llywelyn's death without thinking of the great elegy which Gruffydd Aberynad Goch wrote to Llywelyn, where he expresses his grief in cosmic terms, that the weather itself, the natural world around him, reflects the poet's loss and the loss to Gwynedd and to all of Wales. Marnad Llywelyn ap Gruffydd gan Gruffydd Aberynad Goch. Oer calon dan fron o fraw, a llwynyn am frenin, dderwen ddôr y berffraw. Air dilefn a delyd o'i law, a'r dalaeth o deilwng iddaw. Eirgyrn a irdeirn, nim daw Llywenydd, Llywelyn, nid rydd i'm rwydd wisgaw. Gwai fi am arglwydd, gwalch diwaradwydd, gwai fi o'r aflwydd a'i dramgwyddaw, gwai fi o'r golled, gwai fi o'r dynged, gwai fi o'r clywed fod clwyf arnaw, gwersyll cadwaladr, gweisaf llif daradr, gwas rydd a'i baladr, balawg a'i llaw. Gwasgarawdd alaf, gwisgawdd bob gaiaf, gwisgoedd amdanaf i amdanaw, becheslawn arglwydd, ni'n llwydd ein llaw, bichedd, dragywydd a drig i ddaw. Poni welwch i hynt y gwynt ar glaw, poni welwch i'r deryn am daraw, poni welwch i'r môr ym merwynaw'r tir, poni welwch i'r gwir yn ymgweiriaw, poni welwch i'r haul yn hwyliau'r awyr, poni welwch i'r ser wedi syrthiaw. Poni chredwch i ddew ddyniaddon enfyd, poni welwch i'r byd wedi'r bydiaw. Och, hyd ata ti ddew na ddaw môr dros dir, pa beth yn gedur i ohiriaw. Bob blwyddyn mae band Cambria yn arwain yr yrymdaeth i'r maen, a bob blwyddyn mae Adam Phillips, ei sylfaenydd, yn dod lan ac yn rannu farnau ynglyn â'r hyn sydd wedi digwydd yn y flwyddyn sydd wedi bod. Ac Eleni, rwy'n falch i ddweud, yn y fideo yma, dyn ni'n clywed ganddo fe. Every year the Cambria band lead the procession to the memorial, and every year their founder, Adam Phillips, comes and shares his views on what has happened over the previous year and the way forward for Wales. And I'm glad to say that once again this year we have Adam contributing via video.
Hello, Cilmeri. Adam Phillips, Adam Bachler, as I'm known on social media. From Cambria Band, Yes Cymru, Lindsay Garner o Band Cambria, Yes Cymru hefyd. First of all, very sad, mae'n trist iawn bod ni ddim yn fedru bod yn Cilmeri, very sad we can't be there, but it's a good job that we're not going, because it would give the unionists a chance to have a go at us and say that people in Wales can't obey the rules. So apart from COVID, which has been very negative in Wales, I think we've had quite a good year. It's been a positive year for Wales. It's been put on the map by the Welsh football team winning the Nations Cup, or the Nations League, winning our group and being promoted to Group A. Also, in Wrexham Football Club, it's been bought by 2 Hollywood superstars. Now that's put the profile of North Wales, Wales itself and Wrexham on the map. And they will do a lot. There will be a Netflix documentary on the whole thing. I'm a Celebrity, get me out of here, has put Wales on the map. Also, whether you like it or loathe it, it's been great. It's put the Wales on the map. The theme has been Wales. They've done a really good job, and it's been mainly positive. What else? This weekend, Elfyn Evans. When you're watching this, it'll be the weekend before. You'll already know. Where is Elfyn Evans world champ? So he's putting us on the map even more with the World Rally Championships. So they're all positive things. On the negative side, the Unionists are reacting very heavily, very strongly to the success of Yes Cymru. Now, Yes Cymru have got the independence question firmly on the table, and the Unionists are not liking it. So someone is throwing a lot of dark money at the Abolish the Welsh Assembly Party. It's very, they've got an advertising campaign, they're out leafleting, so someone's paying for all that. So, you've got to watch out for that. Don't react to it on social media, but again, ask people, why do they support these people? If they talk to you about it, just say, well, why do you support them? And then talk them around, what is a nation without its own governance? That is a simple question. Why wouldn't we want our own governance? Anyway, that's me rambling on enough. Then I get mynd reid yma hyd. We're going to give you yma hyd, first verse and chorus, and then I'll finish my talk. Yeah, rolls 1, 2. Thank you very much. Another thing the band have been doing, because of the negativity of COVID and their businesses, we've been trying to help sponsor some local businesses by basically promoting them wherever we can, free of charge. So all our drums will have a rotation of different skins from different businesses. Anyone that asks, really. So if you know what someone is struggling, give us a shout and we'll put their name of their business on a drum skin. Right, diolch yn fawr iawn. Nadolig llawn I phawb. Happy Christmas, and we'll see you either in the Hope event or on Dewi Sant. Right, diolch yn fawr.
Mae'n coffad rithwyr ni yn dechrau dod I ben nawr. A diolch I Josh Fulcher am ddanfon fideo ato ni gyda Elizabeth Evans yn canu, sydd yn dangos hen arfer sydd gyda ni yng Nghilmeri o osod torchau. Torchau o eiddew, o eifi, o blegyd dyna beth arroddwyd ar ben Llywelyn ap Gruffydd gan ddynion Edward y Cynta yn ôl y sôn, mwyn ei ddirmygu fe. Well, we're coming to an end, and we finish now with a video which Josh Fulcher has sent us with Elizabeth Evans singing, and it shows one of the things that we do in Cilmeri every year. We lay wreaths of ivy to remember the crown of ivy which was put on Llywelyn's head by Edward's men, as a gesture of contempt. However, we now use that ivy leaf to remember Llywelyn ap Gruffydd, and they're doing this in the remains of the abbey in Margam. So we hope to see you next year at Cilmeri. Ni'n gobeithio eich gweld chi yng Nghilmeri y flwyddyn nesaf lle dylen ni fod. Ond cofio nawr, Llywelyn a'i ddilynwyr a phawb sydd wedi ymladd i gadw fflam Cymreictod ynghlyn dros y blynyddoedd. We remember now, Llywelyn, his followers and all who have fought to keep the flame of Welshness alive over the centuries.
Ond cadwyd eich halon ei brwydd